Okay, so in this video, I'll be talking about my reread of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This is my fifth entry in the series thus far, which you can check out here. When I first reread The Order of the Phoenix as an adult in 2020, I didn't really love it. I liked it, of course, a lot, but I thought the movie was way better, and it is my favourite Harry Potter movie. But the book ranked on the lower end of my book series ranking. Funny enough, fast forward 4 years and it's now my favourite book in the series. Not only that, but I've actually changed my mind about the main criticisms of this book too. Firstly, I don't believe it's too long at all. I've warmed greatly to what goes on in the Department of Mysteries as well, amongst other things. For the scores, The Order of the Phoenix gets the following: plot 90, characters 100, emotional impact 100, pacing 80, writing style 70, themes 100, uniqueness 90, book cover 100, overall score 92.5. People think this book is too long and that Harry's emotions are negative, but I greatly disagree, and the scores show that. I love this book, but before we get into my thoughts, please like and subscribe and tell us what you think in the comments. In my opinion, this is the first book since The Philosopher's Stone that has, at times, that pure magical feeling to it. You know what I mean? But it wasn't as widespread or constant as the first book, or even in parts of the second. I got that magical feeling during specific scenes, mainly the Dumbledore's army scenes and the Harry and Cho scenes also. I think the magical feeling and the teenage angst, especially around the romance, gives me the same feeling when I'm reading this, which makes sense. There's something magical about romance, I guess. It's also the first time in the series where we've actually had a massive link up of multiple Hogwarts students from multiple houses. Sure, they wine and dine together and they have classes together, but they have to do that. I like this student collectivist action in response to what is going on in the outside magical world with Voldemort fully being back, and of course, with Umbridge. The students really rebel in their own way against the villains on multiple levels in this book. Part 1. Things I'd forgotten about. I've mentioned in my other Harry Potter videos that this is now a YA book. This is no longer a kid's book, we are well into YA territory. So we're getting more adult themes, and J.K. Rowling does this well, especially the subtlety of it. The wizarding caste system is of note here, especially once we get to the Ministry of Magic for Harry's hearing. Quote, a group of golden statues larger than life size stood in the middle of a circular pool. Tallest of them all was a noble looking wizard with his wand pointing straight up in the air. Grouped around him were a beautiful witch, a centaur, a goblin, and a house elf. The last three were all looking adoringly up at the witch and wizard. This is the illustration at the back of the book, and I just realized it. I'm actually quite ashamed of myself for that as well. Anyway, the hierarchy of what the magical statue represents has been shown throughout the series. I thought this description of it was beautifully done, especially also the placement of it. It's in the Ministry of Magic. This is literally central to how wizards view themselves in the magical hierarchy. What was also subtle while we're in the ministry was when Arthur, again the reliable narrator he is, describes the enchanted windows. Quote, those are enchanted windows. Magical maintenance decide what weather we'll get every day. We had 2 months of hurricanes last time they were angling for a pay rise. I smirked when I read it because now that I'm older, it's clear that there was unity amongst the maintenance team in the Ministry of Magic, which I'm all here for. Another reason why I love this book so much is that J.K. Rowling does a great job of portraying everyday life at Hogwarts. Yes, we see this throughout the series, but due to the drama in this book, it feels different. And due to the fact that Voldemort is back now, it also feels different. Quote, Ron finishing his transfiguration essay with many snorts of impatience and crossing out, Hermione writing steadily to the very end of the parchment, and Harry staring into the fire, wishing more than anything that Sirius's head would appear there and give him some advice about girls. I love these mundane moments for some reason, especially since everything is so action-packed at Hogwarts. I guess having a big enough book allows us to really slow down at certain points and in my opinion, this is a major positive. Moving on to the other characters outside of the trio, I really like the supporting cast in this book, and I forgot how much they played a huge role in it. I forgot how much they interact with the main characters in this book, and it really develops the Hogwarts feel and just the Hogwarts interactions a lot better. Say for example, lesser known characters like Zachariah Smith or even Seamus in this book. They're not villains, but they provided so much pushback in this book. It was nice to see that from students other than Malfoy for once. Zachariah Smith was just this like snarky Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw, I think it was a Hufflepuff. But he's snarky, Ron hates him, Harry hates him, I love it. And I love that we get the internal thoughts of Harry, and that even though he'd always gotten along with like Seamus and other minor characters, now they weren't. The unity that they needed to, band together against, the evil that's back was compromised. But the MVPs of the, side characters were Ginny and Cho for me. I totally forgot that it was Cho who came up with the acronym DA, but she named the group Defense Association. But Ginny suggested Dumbledore's army. It's these little things that made this book epic. And to be honest, even the big things like every scene with the DA made this book the best in the series, even though it's not technically rated by my own criteria. Speaking of Cho, I really like her in the books. It's a shame about how things ended with her and Harry. I wanted it to work because Harry was feeling her, even in the Goblet of Fire. She's the first girl that Harry likes in the series, and every time Harry sees her, he's feeling some kind of way. I also liked and forgot that she made a connection about there being no Dementors around now that the Death Eaters had broken out, unlike the time Sirius had broken out of Azkaban and the Dementors were all over Hogsmeade. I really wish Cho had a better arc, and like other members in the DA, she got a lot better at magic, and I feel like there was really a space for her in this series. Her and Harry's thing, because I don't know what to call it, was wild. In every sense of the word. I think the portrayal was accurately done in terms of what a teenage relationship looks like, so I'm not mad at it. I think the height of their relationship roller coaster came on Valentine's Day when they were in that cafe. Quote, "Amazing how much more difficult it was to extend his arm 12 inches and touch her hand than it was to snatch a speeding snitch from midair. It's a shame it never quite clicked for them. But Cho and her crying, she was a hot mess." The books are getting long and so are the videos, so here's a quick list of other things that I forgot about. 1. How much of the magic in previous books came up in owls? I know that sounds stupid because that's how school works, but I forgot, innit? I love the exam scenes also, they were very well done. Number 2, Dursley's finally having a real conversation for once about Voldemort's return. I love that we get to see a bit more of Aunt Petunia, and the fact that, her sister, Harry's mother, was a witch. She knew some of the things in the wizarding world. She knows about Voldemort, she knows about Dumbledore, she knows about Dementors. That facade of ignorance really slipped in this. Number 3, the Aurors did a better job than the Secret Service. I noticed that. I also love the introduction of Tonks. She's an absolutely brilliant character. 4, I totally forgot Ferenz became the new divination teacher. He also talked about the calm between the two great wizarding wars. Number 5, the DA did better than the Order when fighting the Death Eaters in the Department of Mysteries. Number 6, it was heartbreaking when, because Ron got made a prefect and had duties on Hogwarts Express, Harry had to finally travel on the Hogwarts Express without Ron. That was wild. That was a blow. Number 7, I love that McGonagall came back and instantly added points again because of the students who went to the Ministry and fought the Death Eaters. It's been a while since we've had an adventure, and now Gryffindor are gonna get 1,000,000 points. And to be honest, I liked it. And finally, number 8, when we were on our way to Harry's trial, I loved that in the lift with Arthur, we got to see all the different departments in the departments of mysteries, their names, who works there, etc. That was really well done. Kind of adds on to the explanation that we got about the ministry from Arthur in the Goblet of Fire. Part 2, It's a Magical World. The scene at St. Mungo's is what makes this book one of my favourites also. The expansion of the wizarding world and having such a significant event take place in the hospital was beautifully done. It's absolutely criminal that this wasn't in the movies, and I know a lot of Harry Potter fans aren't happy about that. It adds so much to the book and the wider series, especially since at that point Bellatrix had been broken out of Azkaban. So hearing the backstory of the Longbottoms in this magical hospital was just nuts. Hell, we even got to see Lockhart. That was also good as well. And seeing the repercussions of, a backfiring, memory erasing charm was also good. It's kind of like really seeing the consequences of magic. Moving on. Fudge's ridiculous attempt to arrest Dumbledore was hilarious. The whole scene was epic as we see the conniving Umbridge and Fudge try to do their fuckery. I love Dumbledore's polite cockiness as they try to arrest him. Quote, "Well, it's just that you seem to be labouring under a delusion that I'm going to, what's the phrase? Come quietly? I have absolutely no intention of being sent to Azkaban. I could break out, of course, but what a waste of time. And frankly, I could think of a whole host of things I would rather be doing." Wow. This line is so slick and so British. I love it. The delivery, the bravado is just great. And this is the only bravado that Dumbledore could flex. Like literally only he could say stuff like, I mean, I could break out of Azkaban. It's really minor. It's no biggie. And it's weird that only Dumbledore talks about Azkaban like this in the series. Everyone else is so terrified of it. But we all know Dumbledore's built differently. It was even mentioned by one of the examiners for the owls that they were so old. It's one of the older ones that they were the ones that had to test Dumbledore, and even Dumbledore as a student was doing spells that they'd never seen before. So that was hilarious. And I love how that examiner was pissing off Umbridge because they were just heaping all this praise onto Dumbledore, because by that time Umbridge had taken over the school and Dumbledore had fled. Speaking of Umbridge, who knew an evil magical Karen could be such a great character? I think this change of pace of having her, the teacher, be the main villain in the book was a smart move, because we as the reader had gotten used to Snape and the confusing isn't he on our side debate. Umbridge was definitely not on our side. J.K. Rowling wrote her corporate loving, evil self extremely well. Her tyrannical reign over Hogwarts was short-lived and had defiance throughout, which added to her character and the story. She didn't get away with her evil ways, the students rebelled, and I love that. And it also adds the theme of the students as a collective. They are just rebelling at every corner, and it's great. And it's something that doesn't ease up as we're coming now to the latter stages of the series. Part 3. Hold on, there's more. As I mentioned in the intro, I think Harry's anger and emotions are justified in this book, and very well written. It wasn't overdone at all. He's a 15-year-old suffering from isolation, PTSD, and God knows what else. He's been through so much. I said in my Goblet of Fire video that Harry's cup had runneth over, and J.K. Rowling kept pouring into it with the Order of the Phoenix. Yes, Harry is beyond livid with Ron and Hermione, but he has every right to be. Ron lets him vent, but I love that Hermione's emotional intelligence really shines through. She handled Harry very well. She was soft when she needed to be, but she gently clapped back and set him straight during other times. So it really balances out Harry's, frustrations. There's even times where Ginny even has to clap back at him and kind of get him out of his own head and start thinking about others a bit more, even though he's been through so much and he's trying to process everything. Let's move on to the number one MVP of this book though, and that is Professor McGonagall. Lord knows she was on crud in this book. Endless loyalty, endless burns, endless scoldings. It was truly amazing. Quote, "Is it true that you shouted at Professor Umbridge?" Yes, said Harry. You called her a liar? Yes. You told her he who must not be named is back? Yes. Professor McGonagall sat down behind her desk, frowning at Harry. Then she said, "Have a biscuit, Potter." "Have what?" "Have a biscuit," she repeated impatiently, indicating a tartan tin lying on top of one of the piles of papers on her desk. "And sit down." I love this scene, and so do all Harry Potter fans. It was just so unexpected. McGonagall had the perfect balance of surprise and humour and camaraderie, yet she would give you wise counsel too. But the best scene with her in this book is when she's being inspected by Umbridge. The trio already anticipated that it was basically going to be a madness because Umbridge couldn't do her nonsense on McGonagall. Quote, "I wonder," said Professor McGonagall in cold fury, turning on Professor Umbridge, "how you expect to gain an idea of my usual teaching methods if you continue to interrupt me? You see, I do not generally permit people to talk when I'm talking." Professor Umbridge looked as though she had just been slapped in the face. Looking supremely unconcerned, Professor McGonagall addressed the class once more. We gotta bring out the air horns for this one because wow. I love the phrase "looking supremely unconcerned," and that literally is McGonagall's whole vibe to Umbridge throughout the book, and I just love it. Like, there's levels to this. There really is. These funny moments in the book are really what balances it out really well, and that's why I greatly appreciated my reread, or my second reread of the Order of the Phoenix as an adult. But I think the most epic scene in terms of humour has to be with the twins. Quote, "I love hearing Mum shouting at someone else," said Fred, with a satisfied smile on his face as he opened the door an inch or so to allow Mrs. Weasley's voice to permeate the room better. "It makes such a nice change." "The idiots are letting her get into her stride," said George, shaking his head. "You got to head her off early, otherwise she builds up a head of steam and goes on for hours." The way I was laughing when I read this, Jesus. In the book, Molly is going off on Mundungus Fletcher because he's trying to stash stolen goods at Grimmauld Place, which is, usual Fletcher activities. It's these kind of character interactions that make this book epic. Which leads me to my final point. J.K. Rowling did well expanding the cast in this book, although Tonks could have had a bigger role. But overall, I'm just greatly satisfied with this book. So The Order of the Phoenix is first in my Harry Potter rankings. If you'd like to hear my thoughts about the rest of the series, and even on other series, I'm rereading the Maze Runner series currently. You can check out the playlist. Please tell me what your favourite Harry Potter books is in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you all for watching.